Hey guys, it's Olivie Blake, and this is me not writing. This is the best we're going to do. I think I have a cup of coffee. This is a difficult dress to wear a bra with. My apologies in advance. So I have a lot of kind of personal questions today, sort of anecdotal things that some people are up to. Maybe that includes me. Maybe I'll give you some anecdotes. I guess we'll see. We have now passed Aurora Sinister's birthday, but it was her birthday week. It is currently her birthday weekend, which I think still counts. You have probably heard me say many times we really enjoy the Neapolitan novels by Elena Ferrante. And I wrote, if you have read the books, I wrote a one-shot that is essentially Leela's side of the story. So the other main character. The books are about two girls growing up in Naples into their adulthoods. And so one of them is from Lanu's perspective, and I wrote one from Leela's. Definitely, if you've never read the books, it won't make any sense to you, and it will spoil some of it, so I wouldn't recommend it. But if you have read them, well, let me back up. If you haven't read them, you should read them. They're life-changing. If you have read them, then perhaps you might enjoy reading my take on them. I hope I did right by her. She is a very good character. So that was for Aurora's birthday. Also, the Divination for Skeptics playlist is now available on Spotify. So yeah, I actually really like it. It is full of a lot of kind of like alt bops. So I listen to it often. Ugh. Such a questionable bra day. Okay, so the first one is from the person who asked me the body image question. So there's a little bit more here, which I kind of suspected there would be. There was a little bit more going on in that question than just body image. So I think it's a long process to accepting how I am, and I have these moments that I feel comfortable in my body. And like I said, I think it's pretty rare that you always hate yourself or always love yourself. It's more like a, I think that body image or body confidence, I guess you could say, is one of the first things to go when you're in a little bit of, when you're dealing with other things, when you're stressed or when you're depressed or when emotionally you're compromised. I think one of the first things to go is, I don't like how I look. So I think this is really an up and down thing, very common, and I mean for that to be reassuring, that this is something we all sort of understand and we all go through. As much as people may look like they're very confident in themselves, they definitely have these moments as well. So yes, you're right about my father, and moments like this show how strange our relationship really is. I never thought much about it until now, but I always really especially wanted his approval because it seems to be impossible to reach. Remember how I said that generally the father-daughter relationship is very important, and so is mother-son, because the parent of the opposite gender kind of determines how you feel about yourself. So if it's hard for you to gain your father's approval, that probably means it's also hard for you to gain your own approval. It's probably very hard for you to love yourself as you are. So that makes a lot of sense for this body image question. And and I keep interrupting your actual question to just address, I guess I just constantly want to reassure you that it's okay. The way you're feeling is, it's normal for your circumstance. I definitely have this as well, where sometimes it is really hard to love myself the way that I am, or to forgive myself when I do things wrong. That's actually very difficult for me. When I do something wrong, I have the hardest time forgiving myself for it. That's not something that we are taught to do very often. I don't think we're taught to forgive ourselves for our flaws. I think we're more often taught to forgive others or to try to seek others' forgiveness. But there is something really unalterably important about looking at yourself and recognizing that there are parts of you that aren't perfect or aren't the way you'd like them to be. And yes, some of them you can work on, but some of them are just you, and some of them are just things you've done wrong and things you've learned from, and you tell yourself it's okay. So in your case, it's okay that you want your dad's approval. I think we all do. No matter, I said your dad was being a dick, right? And he is. But it's still normal for you to want his approval. It's normal for you to say he's being an asshole and also I want him to approve of me. Naturally, those two instincts they're difficult to, they can't coexist. You're really thinking to yourself, I want the approval of someone who I know to be wrong. But that's what you're forgiving yourself for, is that's very human of you to want it. And maybe over time you will forgive yourself that need, that compulsion compulsion to seek his approval and allow yourself to be as you are. So when I was 13 or 14, he was in another country at that time. So basically they didn't see much of each other. He cheated on her mother. And of course that will cause trust problems, because if you know, it's really hard to be in a healthy relationship when you don't see healthy relationships, because knowing how to love is something that we learn from observation. And learning how to be loved is also something we learn from how others treat us. So for you to be treated this way and to observe your father treating your mother a certain way, obviously that's going to cause problems in your relationships. So it says, sometimes I have to take a step back to shut up this part of my brain that says my boyfriend will leave and cheat on me because I'm too difficult. A super common thing. I get this a lot. I've mentioned before that, you know, I think it's very human and also very female to wonder, am I too much? Am I too difficult? You know, it's not often that we think about the fact that we love powerfully and people want our love, you know, because we can't give our love to ourselves sometimes. So we probably don't always know what it's like to be loved by ourselves. But I bet if you really asked yourself, you would think, I am a good girlfriend. I am a good friend. I care a lot. And the way that I love people is meaningful. But it's hard to make that connection between I love well and I am worthy of love. Those are two very difficult things to reconcile when you have this background like this, where it has been hard for you to get approval. So, I mean, this is a lot of psychoanalysis. I don't want to be your therapist here. But just everything you're feeling is just very normal. These fears are very normal. Acknowledging your strengths and why other people would love you might help you love yourself and create that distance between, I want my father's approval, but I don't need it. I think that's kind of the place you need to get, which is, it's okay for me to want him to love me, to approve of me. However, his love is flawed. And I will be okay without it. I'm glad I was able to help you feel a little better about yourself. I hope you do feel good about yourself. I think that you should. And, you know, maybe it might help to make a list of reasons why your love is valuable, why you are valuable. And not so much you, but why someone would want to be in your life. I think if you can acknowledge that to yourself, then you can give yourself a little bit more credit. Okay, I love this story. It's very long. I might cut things out. The reason I love this story, just to preface, is because every single girl ever in the history of the world has either been in this story, like one of the people in this story, or they have been adjacent to this story in some way. This is just like the female experience in a story. Okay. Hello, Olivie. I find myself in a kind of messy situation, and I'm hoping that maybe your experience or your understanding of people might help me. Oh, do you think I understand people? That's so nice. So I'm in this group of 8 friends, but as groups work, you get closer with others and the rest, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, 8 friends, that's pretty big usually. With groups, everyone's always got a favorite. The groups had ups and downs over the years, but as college and jobs got in our way, we saw each other rarely, mostly on birthday parties, so approximately 8 times a year and New Year's Eve. My favorite person of the group, the one that I have the oldest friendship with, is this guy, A. We got close by going home together, being the only losers that were going in that direction. Oh, God, doesn't this sound so familiar? If you're listening to this and you're not this person, doesn't this sound familiar? Okay. We always talked about things, advice and stuff. We understood each other. But at some point in high school, we caused a major argument in our group. Apparently, the boys knew he had a crush on me, and I, being young and stupid, panicked and reacted extremely immaturely, and I got some harsh words from my friends. I just want to pause and say, a bunch of people who were reading The Commoner's Guide to Betting Royal, they kept saying, like, why wouldn't Daphne just want to be with Theo? And, like, this is why. This is just what, it's just, like, so hard to be human. It's really hard to feel emotions powerfully, but also not know what to do with them. Especially if you're like the person we were talking about earlier, where you're not really sure that you even deserve love. So then wanting it and thinking you don't deserve it is very difficult to do. And, I mean, I don't know if that was relevant to you. This might have just been, like, a lot that you were not prepared for, but anyway, I think this is just a very common situation. This is just a thing that often happens. Okay. Joke's on me, after a year I started crushing on him hard, never told him. Again, so relatable. This crush disappeared, I befriended this girl B and we were super close. As you, the audience, might guess, A and B got together. I mean, I feel like I can't, like, not to belittle this story to you, the person who has asked me this, but like, this is just so common. I could just see all of this coming, and honestly, I laughed a little bit, not because I don't feel your pain, but because I do, but because I've seen myself go through this. Anyway, so obviously I stopped talking to A as I used to. B made some new and cool friends. She was always talking about them. I felt jealous. Soon she stopped talking to me. Yes, soon she stopped telling me things about her, and I tried to keep the friendship, but we grew colder, blah, blah, blah. Then we were only using the group chat. A wanted to take a break, and then they tried to relink their relationship, but B refused, etc., etc. So A and B don't work out. I tried to help A. You know what's coming. So yeah, a few nights ago, A called me and told me the problems, and I told him mine, and then we talked about weird stuff. He was coming back from work, and he never put the phone down. Told me he never talked to someone for so long, and that it was great. It seems that she found someone and that A said he doesn't want to talk to her ever. I can't ignore the recent flirty comments coming from A and our long connection and some chemistry, but I'm afraid to hurt B. After the breakup, okay, so basically, the asker here is saying she doesn't want to hurt B's feelings if she ends up in a relationship with A, and the friends have said that they won't take sides. So let me just tell you right up front, the friends are going to take sides. This will break up your friend group. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, some harsh realities to start with. First of all, you sound like you might be a little bit intimacy starved. It sounds like you don't really feel like you're close to anyone right now, which might be affecting your judgment. Because it sounds like you missed the relationship that you had with B, you also missed the relationship you had with A, and now he's available, but you will be the rebound. Whether or not you want to see where that goes is up to you. It might work out. In the times that I have seen this happen, I would say 50-50, it does work out. You could end up being the one who marries A. You might. That happens. But you will definitely lose B as a friend. There's no way to handle this without losing someone. So when it comes to making that decision, just decide it's tough, but one of these people is going to be in your life moving forward, and the other, and possibly more, will not. And you are conscientiously making that decision when whatever you do next, basically, is going to be you making that choice. If you continue to get closer to A, you're going to lose B, and whoever B is closest to in your friend group, sorry. Therefore, you're probably not going to be as involved in your friend group as you were. But it also seems like your friend group might be breaking up anyway, because A and B are obviously both members, and they're not going to want to be around each other anymore. So it might be that this group is it's not built to last, which, that happens. It will probably splinter, a group splinter. That is very common. I think my bigger concern is, emotionally, you're in a vulnerable place because you miss these friendships, you miss these relationships. You haven't really mentioned someone else being in your life the way that they were, which doesn't mean there isn't, but I'm just judging from what I know. It seems like you like the feeling of them being there, and therefore you might be a little more emotionally compromised than A. You might make more of it than he will. So put your guard up a little, because he was being intimate with you, and that's why you feel like you want more intimacy. But whether that is something that could carry on into the future, I don't know, because right now he is hurt by B, and he might be falling for you, or he might just be taking comfort in the fact that you are being sympathetic to him. At this point, anyone who's sympathetic to him is probably going to be someone he wants to keep close to him. Obviously, you and A do have some chemistry. You could have been together a while ago, which doesn't mean that you shouldn't be now. It just means that you're not wrong to feel like there's something there. But you're making your bed right now, okay? You're building the foundation of something that will be a problem in your group, and it might be worth it. It might, because this guy, he might be the person, you know? He might be your person. I don't know if he is or not. I don't know enough about your relationship or his state of mind to make a judgment call on that. But if he is, the rest of this group is not your people. I don't foresee this going well. The many times that I have seen this happen or been adjacent to this happening or heard other people talk about something like this happening, that you might marry this guy, but the rest of these people will not be at that wedding, is kind of the visual I want you to have. So do you want a life with him in it? Is it worth it if it doesn't include a lot of the others? Might be. But just in terms of deciding what choice to make, you are definitely making a choice. You don't get to have all of it. I think it's sounding to me like the rest of these friendships you might not be able to salvage what's left of the rest of them. I think B is probably out of your life. She's probably out. You can either try to repair your relationship with her, which I don't know if you can, or you can try to see what happens with your relationship with A, which definitely might go somewhere. So those are kind of your options. Yeah, I can't say firmly enough that you're gonna lose friends over this, but they might not actually be your friends as they are right now. They might kind of already be out of the picture, whether you have admitted that to yourself or not. So just something to reframe the problem a little bit. Okay. A really basic question. What writing program do you use? So what program do you use to write? Is it simply Word or is there a better one? Every time I have an idea in my head and I sit down to write on Word, poof, it's gone. So I was wondering if the sterile aesthetic of Microsoft Word did that to you also. Okay, to answer the first part of your question, I write in Google Docs because it auto-saves and then I can send it to people if I need someone to edit it. But also I compile my manuscripts in Word, so my books and stuff I do in Word. But I don't think the problem is the sterile environment. I think the problem is you're afraid of a blank page. There's no such thing as a computer program that's going to be like, aha, here it is, and now my muse can run wild. I understand what you're saying. I also think it's kind of bullshit. Please don't insult anyone. I know the feeling of I'm making excuses for why I can't do this right now. But the truth is that you're just a little bit intimidated by the idea that there is nothing written down. That's why the idea goes away. You're probably not confident in it to begin with. And I think this is just a mind over matter situation. There are plenty of times where I sit down in my word processor and I'm just like, good God, I do not know, like, the enormity of what I have to do right now feels just like so much. It's so overwhelming. Basically, like on Mondays, I sit down to write my chapter of Divination for Skeptics, which is what I'm writing right now. I sit down to my blank page and I go, good God, by the end of this day, I'm supposed to have 7,000 words written, and right now there's 0. Like, that is a lot. That is a lot. There's no possible way it's going to happen. And you just kind of have to get over that sense of intimidation or fear or that just neuroticism of, oh my God, how am I going to do this? So it's possible, first of all, your expectations might be too high. For me, I have an idea of what I can accomplish, and that's why when I look at a blank page, I'm like, all right, I have some idea what's going to be at the end of this. How I'm going to get there from here is a total mystery, but I have some expectation of what should happen. So I think, first of all, you probably need to lower your expectations. All you want to do is start. All you want to do is hold on to that idea long enough that you have something you can edit. You can't edit a blank page, as people often say. And so you just have to get something written down. This dress is like an H&M basic or whatever, and it is like too low, and I had to knot the zip. Everything's fine. But I think the reason that I wanted to address it like this is because, honestly, it's a little bit hard for me. People don't take the arts seriously, right? I read something in the introduction to Cherie by Colette. It said something about Colette being a natural writer and how this was really an insult to her because she drafts very carefully and makes a lot of edits. And it's kind of the same thing. I often feel this way when people are like, oh, you must have all this natural talent. No, because that's undervaluing how much work I actually do. the majority of the time that I put into writing isn't the actual writing part. It's the editing it until it makes sense, the making it work, the getting through the daunting blank page and sort of using whatever, all the discipline I possess to go from the blank page to something that is actually worth editing. And then I spend twice as much time in the editing process as I do in the just raw writing stage. So I think for me, I take it very personally when people are like, oh, like, when people really romanticize the artistic temperament, it does kind of bother me a little bit, because art, writing, art, music, these things are perceived as talents, but really they are both a talent and a skill. You have to have the creativity and the imagination, yes, but you also have to work through the obstacles that other people face and just give up on. So what makes you a writer isn't that you can write when you're given a pleasing interface. What makes you a writer is that everyone else who would walk away from that blank page walks away and you don't. You stay there and you make it work. That's what makes you a writer. And I think it's just a little bit frustrating to me, because the approach to an artistic medium should not be treated differently as the approach to a STEM occupation. And the reason that people mock art and liberal arts and the study of literature, for example, versus math and science, is they misunderstand the discipline that comes along with being an artist. And I don't want to lecture you, which I know is what I am doing, but you are capable of producing this story. The ideas, I'm sure, are good, and you just have to take them. It's your job to give them a body, to pull them out of thin air and put them somewhere. And yeah, there are probably different user experiences that might be better for you. I don't know what specifically it is about Word you don't like. It's not, Google Docs is not any better. Microsoft Word is at least this like pleasing blue. Google Docs is just like white. And it's equally daunting, it's equally sterile, but it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter, because where you're writing really shouldn't. Like, I understand maybe where you are when you're writing might change, or you have a preferred context and you probably have preferred ways you want to write, yes, but it shouldn't stop you. If the idea is very good, if your discipline is very good, if you really are willing to put in the work to make a story out of nothing, out of thin air, that is really on you. That's not on your word processor. I don't know. I feel bad because I know what I'm doing is I'm projecting. But it does bother me a little bit. Sometimes people, when they hear I'm a writer, they'll say, oh, I could never write a book. And it's kind of the way they're saying it, where like, I feel like they're not giving me enough credit. It's weird because it's a compliment, right? Like they're saying, oh, you wrote a whole book. Wow, like I could never do that. But it's more, the implication is they could never do it because they don't have something that I was born with, that I was just born with this ability to do this. I was not. Writing, anyone can write. I've said this before. Anyone can be creative. Anyone can be imaginative. But the writers, people who call themselves writers, are the ones who really work at that, who try to get better, and who turn what might be innate talent into a skill that they've done many times and have perfected and worked at. The writers that you admire, there's no such thing as a natural writer. They edit, they work. And not to say that you don't, because I'm sure that you do. But yeah, I think it's just the way we talk about art. We should treat it like it matters. We should treat it like it's important. The study of literature is important. Just because arts are more subjective doesn't mean that they lack a metric. I'm really just going off on a tangent. So I'm going to stop myself. I'm going to reel it back. Just to encourage you to get past what I really think is a fear. I guess intimidation is really the better word, or stress or something like that. But yeah, just getting past that is step one. There are other word processors, but I don't know what you want. I mean, I don't think that staring at a computer screen is, you could try to write by hand. You could at least take your notes by hand. Usually I write down a lot of like pre-writing thoughts about what I think is going to happen before I actually do the whole blank page thing. So you might give that a try. Okay, well, I think I have gone on for long enough. Yeah. I had a really emotional day today on Tumblr. Got very emotional with my asks. Very fragile, I suppose. But anyway, this has been me, Olivie Blake, not writing. And I'll see you. This has been me, Olivie Blake, not writing. And I'll see you next week.